My fiancé said, "I'm not signing a prenup. You should trust me." I told her, "I do." Then I shifted all my assets under my mother's name. The lawyer's letter explaining it left her speechless. I'm 29, male, and I'm sitting here staring at what used to be my engagement ring, trying to process how spectacularly my life fell apart over the past month. I met Sienna, 27, about 2.5 years ago at a friend's barbecue. She was finishing her master's degree in communications and working part-time at a PR firm. I'm a software developer who got very lucky early in life. When I was 24, I sold an app one had developed in college to a tech company for $1.2 million. After taxes and clearing my student loans, I walked away with around $750,000. I invested most of it, bought a modest condo, and kept living like a normal guy on my salary. Sienna knew about the app sale from the start. I wasn't hiding it. She seemed genuinely unfazed and didn't suddenly start acting differently or more interested because of the money. She was ambitious, funny, and driven. I fell for her hard. We got engaged 6 months ago, and it was one of the happiest moments of my life. She cried. I cried. We started planning a small wedding for next fall. Everything seemed perfect until 3 weeks ago when I brought up the prenup. We were having dinner at her place, and I mentioned meeting with my lawyer to draft a simple prenuptial agreement. It wasn't anything extreme, just a document to protect the assets I had before marriage and any inheritance, with everything earned during the marriage split 50-50ths. Standard, fair stuff. The moment I said the word prenup, she froze. Her fork hovered midair. Sienna, a prenup isn't about not trusting you, I said gently. It's just smart planning. Your student loans stay yours. My premarital assets stay mine. Everything we build together is equally ours. She put her fork down, and her entire demeanor shifted. I can't believe you want a prenup. You should trust me. If you loved me, you wouldn't even ask. Her voice trembled, but it wasn't sadness. It was anger. I tried to explain that it was common and protected us both, but she accused me of calling her a gold digger and said she'd never sign one. Marriage is about faith, Nolan. If you need a legal document, maybe we shouldn't get married, she said, tears in her eyes. That night, I backed off, but something about her reaction gnawed at me. It wasn't disappointment, it was rage, like I had insulted her by even suggesting we protect our assets. After a few sleepless nights, I made a decision. I called my mom, a retired teacher with a sharp mind and zero tolerance for drama. I explained the situation and told her I wanted to temporarily transfer my investment accounts and condo deed into her name. She hesitated but ultimately agreed, saying if Sienna loved me for me, this shouldn't matter. Over the next week, I worked with my lawyer and financial advisor to complete the transfers. Legally, I now owned almost nothing except my car, about $30,000 in my checking account, and my personal belongings. A few nights later, I told Sienna over dinner that I didn't need a prenup anymore because I trusted her. She squealed, hugged me, and kissed me, saying, "This is what real love looks like." Then I mentioned that I had transferred all my assets to my mom's name for estate planning and tax purposes. Her face went cold in an instant. "You did what?" she whispered. I calmly explained the transfers and assured her it didn't change anything for us. But she didn't see it that way. She said, "That was supposed to be our future. You just gave it away." I reminded her of her own words that marriage was about trust, not money. She stood there in silence for a long time before finally saying, "I need to think," and left. That was 4 days ago. Yesterday, I received a letter from a law firm I'd never heard of, accusing me of financial misconduct, fraudulent transfers, and breach of promise to marry. They demanded I reverse all the transfers, provide full financial disclosure, and compensate Sienna for emotional damages. I actually laughed when I read it. My lawyer found it hilarious too. "We're not married. She has no claim," he said. He sent back a polite no. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. What followed was the kind of insanity I couldn't have imagined. Sienna showed up at my condo in tears, begging me to undo the transfers. When I refused, she claimed my mother was poisoning me against her. A few days later, my mom called me, baffled, saying Sienna and her mother had shown up at her house to pressure her into transferring everything back. My mom told them to leave before she called the police. That's when things really went off the rails. I started getting Facebook messages from Sienna's friends, all urging me to do the right thing and give her the security she deserved. Her roommate Janine, who worked at my company, started a whisper campaign in the office, and I even had to meet with HR over an anonymous complaint implying I was unstable and financially abusive. Sienna went nuclear. She created a blog called When Prince Charming Turns Pauper and posted long rants about me, painting herself as a victim of manipulation and betrayal. She accused me of financial abuse, narcissism, and emotional cruelty. Even worse, she tried to move into the apartment directly above mine, and when denied, had her lawyer friend threaten the property manager with a discrimination lawsuit. When that failed, she began canceling our wedding vendors under my name using a fake email account, trying to stick me with fees. She even had her father call my mom to lecture her about real men taking care of their women. Then, in the most ironic twist, my financial advisor called to tell me the tech stock I'd bought 3 years ago had just been acquired, and my mom's portfolio, now holding all my transferred assets, had grown by $400,000. Eventually, Sienna's life unraveled. Her blog was discovered by her PR firm, and she was fired for time theft, poor judgment, and using company resources for personal drama. Without a steady income, she couldn't afford her lawyer or a new apartment and had to move back in with her parents. Janine later reached out to apologize, revealing Sienna had a whole notebook filled with plans to access my accounts after marriage, including stolen passwords and notes about my mom being the obstacle. The entire prenup outrage had been calculated manipulation. Now, Sienna is back home, working part-time at a clothing store, and her blog has gone silent. My assets are secure with my mom, and I've started therapy to process the whole ordeal. I even started casually dating someone who insisted on paying for our first date, which felt like a breath of fresh air. Looking back, transferring my assets wasn't just smart. It exposed the truth before I made the biggest mistake of my life. To anyone reading this, trust your instincts. If someone refuses a reasonable prenup and explodes over boundaries, there's usually a reason. And never underestimate the wisdom of a mom who doesn't tolerate nonsense. It's been 6 months since the chaos with Sienna ended, and in some ways my life feels like it belongs to someone else. The quiet is almost unsettling after months of legal letters, fake emails, whisper campaigns, and constant emotional manipulation. My condo feels like my own again, technically still under my mom's name, but she and I joke about me paying her rent with gourmet coffee and weekend visits. The strangest part is how much perspective I've gained now that the dust has settled. After Sienna moved back in with her parents, I heard less and less about her directly. My mom occasionally ran into her father at the grocery store, and the updates were enlightening. Apparently, the months following her firing were brutal for her image. She tried pivoting her blog into some sort of empowerment journey, writing about financial independence and rising from betrayal, but it didn't stick. Readers dropped off, comments slowed to a trickle, and then one particularly blunt commenter linked her old posts, exposing the hypocrisy of her new, independent woman narrative. She deleted her Instagram and took the blog offline shortly after. Her reputation in her professional circle was damaged beyond repair. PR firms aren't eager to hire someone who broadcasts personal drama online while accusing former partners of crimes that never happened. Meanwhile, my life took an unexpected positive turn. Janine, the former roommate who had once helped spread rumors, became an unlikely ally. After apologizing over coffee and telling me about Sienna's notebook full of schemes, she offered to provide a written statement for any future legal issues. Her guilt seemed genuine. She told me that once Sienna moved back home, her parents finally saw the extent of her financial mess. Credit card debt, personal loans, and multiple subscription payments she could barely track. Apparently, she had been counting on me as a long-term bailout, a safety net she thought she deserved just for being in my life. Hearing that solidified my decision to never, ever second-guess my instincts again. A month ago, I had what I consider the final chapter in this saga. Out of nowhere, I received a handwritten letter, no return address, but the handwriting was unmistakably Sienna's. It wasn't angry this time. It was reflective, almost desperate. She wrote about how she had hit rock bottom and how she now understood why I did what I did. She admitted that she panicked because, deep down, she knew her life was unstable and she had been looking to me for security. She said she still loved me and hoped that someday I could forgive her. I didn't reply. I scanned it, sent it to my lawyer for the file, and shredded the original. I had already spent too many months living in her chaos. Since then, I've focused on rebuilding my peace and my trust in people. Therapy has been a game changer. I've started dating casually, but with no rush and no illusions. The woman I've been seeing for a few weeks now, Leah, is the polar opposite of Sienna. Calm, independent, and completely uninterested in my finances. On our third date, she casually mentioned her own retirement plan and side investments, which felt like a breath of fresh air. There were no games, no manipulation, just two adults enjoying each other's company. As for my assets, my mom still technically holds them, but we're planning a structured transfer back into my name with new trusts in place. It's funny, what started as a defensive move ended up teaching me the most important lesson of my life. Love without respect for boundaries is not love at all. Sienna didn't just want me. She wanted what I represented: security, comfort, and a financial rescue from a mess she created. The best part? I no longer feel angry. I just feel free. Free from someone else's expectations, free from manipulation, and free to finally live my life without wondering if the person I love is secretly planning my downfall. My mom and I joke about the whole ordeal sometimes, calling it the great fiancé heist that never happened. But deep down, I know I dodged a life-altering bullet. And if there's a moral to this part of the story, it's this: never ignore the red flags, and never apologize for protecting what you've worked hard for. A person who truly loves you won't see your caution as an insult. They'll see it as part of building a future together. And if they can't, well, better to find out before the wedding than after. I thought everything was over after Sienna's last letter, and for a few weeks, life was peaceful. I focused on work, therapy, and rebuilding my routines. But then, like clockwork, Sienna made one last desperate attempt to pull me back into her orbit. It started with an email, not to me, but to my company's HR department. I only found out when I was called into another meeting. The email was an anonymous tip claiming I had financially manipulated a woman into signing illegal documents, and that I had hidden assets to avoid paying spousal obligations. The problem with her plan was obvious. I wasn't married, and the documents didn't exist. HR had already flagged the message as likely coming from my recent ex, but company policy required they notify me. I explained the situation, and my manager, who had stood by me the entire time, just shook his head and said, "Some people don't know when to quit." A week later, the final stunt happened. My mom called me one evening, her voice tinged with amusement and disbelief. "Nolan," she said, "you're not going to believe who just came to my door." I didn't even have to guess. Sienna herself, dressed in what my mom described as sadly glamorous, had shown up with a bouquet of flowers and a gift bag. She claimed she wanted to apologize in person, that she finally understood everything and just wanted closure. My mom, being the legend she is, didn't even let her step inside. She accepted the flowers, said, "Closure is something you find on your own," and shut the door. I think that was the exact moment Sienna realized her hold on our lives was gone. After that, nothing. No texts, no emails, no letters. Her blog remained deleted, her social media accounts gone. I later learned through a mutual acquaintance that she had taken a retail job in another city and was living in a small apartment on her own. Her parents had finally told her to face life without a bailout. Part of me hoped that would be the wake-up call she needed to take responsibility for her life. But by then, it wasn't my problem anymore. Meanwhile, my life only improved. My assets, still in my mom's name, continued to grow, and with the help of my lawyer, we began transitioning them into a trust with clear protections. My career remained steady, and my reputation at work was intact despite her attempts to sabotage me. Most importantly, my peace of mind returned. Leah and I continued dating, slowly and without pressure. And for the first time in years, I felt like I was building a relationship based on mutual respect, not manipulation or hidden agendas. Looking back now, I see Sienna's last attempt for what it really was, a final grasp at control, a refusal to accept that her narrative had collapsed. She wanted me to regret, to chase her, to play into the drama. But instead, I moved on. My mom calls her the lesson, and she's right. Sienna taught me the cost of ignoring red flags and the importance of protecting what you've worked for. Love is not control and trust isn't blind. If someone truly cares for you, they won't see a prenup as an insult. They'll see it as part of building a responsible future together. So that's the end. No revenge, no last-minute twist where she wins. Just the slow, inevitable fate of someone who built their life on manipulation and ran out of places to hide. I dodged a bullet, my mom got the Mother of the Year award, and I got my freedom back. And honestly, that's better than any engagement ring could ever be.